Tonight,
those people are living in hell.
the president trashing Baltimore. This after a White House meeting with inner city pastors.
America is troubled.
Our exclusive sit-down with one of those faith leaders. Increasing violence in Afghanistan, then the slaying of 2 American soldiers comes as the U.S. prepares to draw down troops. And a new book explains why evangelicals have stood by President Trump despite his past.
There really was a transactional relationship from evangelicals.
Plus,
They came from God and country.
today marks the 400th anniversary of the birth of democracy in Jamestown, Virginia. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
And welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. The battle over Baltimore heats up. President Trump saying the people there are living in, quote, hell.
The commander-in-chief is not backing down from his attack against Maryland Congressman Elijah Cummings. CBN's White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us with the latest. Ben?
Well, Jenna, President Trump says he has no regrets when it comes to his comments on Baltimore, adding that the people of Baltimore really appreciate what he's doing. Today, Trump said the White House has been flooded with letters, emails, and even phone calls thanking him for getting involved.
Those people are living in hell in Baltimore.
President Trump doubled down, calling Maryland's 7th District corrupt.
It's a corrupt city. There's no question about it. All you have to do is look at the facts.
The poverty rate in 2017 hit 22%, almost double the national average. To top that, the city received nearly $17 billion in federal funds in 2018 alone.
Billions and billions of dollars have been given to Baltimore. It's been misspent. It's been missing. It's been stolen.
Alveda King, the niece of Martin Luther King, pushed back on critics who say the president is making things worse.
Are you okay with the comments he made about certain cities like Baltimore being infested, which some folks took as racial?
Well, you know, America is troubled. And if we say we're colorblind, we need to put on our glasses. We can see. We can see a troubled America, but we can see a blessed America. The employment rates are up in every community, including the black community.
Disgusting and racist.
A racist president.
While Democrats offered fierce backlash to Trump's comments, Republicans have been hesitant to call out his attacks. Congressman Mark Meadows refused to take a side, concluding that neither man is a racist.
What are you talking about by political strategy? Are you talking with respect to Elijah Cummings? There's no strategy. I have no strategy. There's zero strategy. All it is I'm pointing out facts. The most unsafe city in the country, in our country, is Baltimore.
Now, President Trump made today's comments after heading to Virginia to speak at Jamestown. It is there a group of black state lawmakers boycotted Trump's appearance, citing his repeated attacks on minority members of Congress. Jenna?
Thanks, Ben. Well, Bishop Harry Jackson, senior pastor of Hope Christian Church, was at the White House yesterday for that meeting with President Trump and inner city faith leaders, and he joins us now. Bishop Jackson, thanks for being here. It's always good to have you.
Good to be here, Jenna.
You know, you have been in the White House a lot in this Oval Office with this administration. You've been up close to President Trump. Is he racist?
Absolutely not. He's a problem solver, and in this politically charged, kind of antagonistic atmosphere, he is someone who speaks his mind. It's sort of like the James Bond adage, straight with no chaser kind of thing, or those kinds of thoughts. And in this atmosphere, the recoil is heavy. So the narrative of racism is what is being thrown against him. I believe the Democratic Party wants to take him out by claiming that he is a racist. They feel that's his Achilles heel. So no matter what he says, they come back with that kind of retort.
Bishop Jackson, a lot of people characterized yesterday's White House meeting with faith leaders that you attended as a photo op. You were there. Was it just a photo opportunity?
Absolutely not. Remember, we met with him 1 year ago, 1 year ago today, actually. So it was a checkup. It was something to find out how we're doing. We talked about criminal justice reform. We also talked about the opportunity zones.
So it was planned in advance?
It was planned way in advance. Again, when we left last year, we were told we're going to bring you back. So I don't know where the media got this idea that this is just a politically charged strategy.
When you see the president's comments about Baltimore, how are the people of Baltimore feeling, Bishop Jackson?
I have members in Baltimore. I live equidistant between D.C. and Baltimore, so I know a little bit about it. I think many of the elected officials are irate because of the branding issue of their city. I think that the people are happy about opportunity zones, economics, but they're going to be happier when we start seeing more projects, more results. I think we're in a time where President needs a hearing and he needs cooperation. I'm concerned that what Baltimore can do with the opportunity zones, we know shovel-ready job opportunity creation, as well as housing, that will not be received well and partnered with. I hope they rise up and do the right thing.
Bishop Jackson, we only have less than half a minute. Yesterday, someone said that the president can do more. Can you give us examples of what you think that he can do to help heal the divide?
Well, I think he can continue to speak in unifying terms. I think he is a fighter and a doer, but I think if he will really work on trying to mend bridges,
right.
I think that's what he can do. And the work will speak for itself, but I think he's doing a lot better,
all right.
And I'm proud of him now.
Bishop Perry Jackson, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, turning overseas tonight, reports indicate 2 U.S. soldiers killed in Afghanistan were shot by an Afghan army soldier.
The insider slayings come as the U.S. plans a troop drawdown and after a presidential bombshell last week in the Oval Office. CBN News national security correspondent Eric Phillips has the latest on the increasing violence.
John and Jenna, for some, the deaths of 2 American soldiers only underscores the need for the U.S. to pull out of Afghanistan. The question is, how do we withdraw? Recently, the president threw out one option and why he has not chosen it. The mission in Afghanistan is far from over. In addition to the 2 U.S. soldiers killed Monday, just last week, 3 back-to-back blasts killed 20 people in Kabul. The Taliban claiming responsibility for at least one of those blasts.
I was sitting in my room when I heard the explosion. The air was filled with smoke and dust. I opened the door and saw 2 wounded people.
In areas where the Taliban have reclaimed control, there are reports of honor killings, stoning, and other attacks on women's rights. Peace, security, and economic stability are urgently needed.
Against that violent backdrop, the president said this last week.
We're not fighting a war. If we wanted to fight a war in Afghanistan and win it, I could win that war in a week. I just don't want to kill 10 million people.
He would have been much better off editing himself and not uttering those words at all.
Monday, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the administration wants to withdraw troops from Afghanistan by the 2020 election. Right now, there are 14,000 U.S. service members there. That would be a challenge in the midst of so much unrest.
Every president that we've had in recent years, and probably almost every American, would love for this mission to end. But whenever we really try to get out, or even to reduce dramatically, we realize we could be giving ISIS or al-Qaeda an opportunity.
O'Hanlon says he could see the administration meeting its goal of a partial U.S. drawdown by next fall. Still, he says, because of the complex nature of the conflict in Afghanistan, the president's statement was in poor taste, he says, and not reflective of any viable option by the military. John and Jenna.
All right, thank you, Eric. Well, up on Capitol Hill this week, the Senate will vote on a 2-year budget deal between the White House and Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The bill passed the House last week.
The spending bill eliminates the threat of another government shutdown through the rest of President Trump's first term and raises the national debt limit until the middle of 2021. For more now, we go to our CBN News Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson. Abigail, why are some Republican senators voting no, even though the president is urging them to support this agreement?
Well, John, fiscal conservatives like Senator Mike Braun tell me they understand why President Trump and Leader McConnell politically support this bill, but he ran on bringing some sanity to our government spending, and he can't vote for a bill that piles on to our already massive debt and deficits.
fact that it doesn't have any reforms associated with it, that it's now kind of standardized Republicans rolling over for Democrats on domestic issues, and likewise Democrats on defense for Republicans. We haven't done a budget in 20 years that we've appropriated to. So I think that we bred into the system that this is just the way it should be, but we're avoiding the hard decision.
Well, Braun added that he believes Republicans will win in 2020, and if that happens, it's time for his party to start looking at real spending reform, including cutting back on defense spending, or we're headed towards calamity.
All right, Abigail Robertson on Capitol Hill, thank you. Well, on the campaign trail, debate 2 for the Democrats is tonight in Detroit. 10 of the 20 qualified candidates will deliver their message to the American people. And here they are as they will appear on stage. Since the last debate, Senators Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris have seen a rise in the polls. According to a new Morning Consult poll, Vice President Joe Biden is still a frontrunner, but down 9 points since June. Senator Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg also saw a dip. Senator Warren, however, is up 2 points since June, and Senator Harris saw a 7-point increase. Tonight's debate starts at 8 p.m. Eastern and will last 2 hours.
Well, joining us now is Mike Vaquera, a veteran correspondent who has spent decades covering Washington politics, both on the Hill and at the White House for various networks. Mike, thanks so much for being with us.
Great to be here.
Well, President Trump stealing a little bit of the Democrats' thunder ahead of tonight's debate, saying that he thinks Sleepy Joe, of course, Joe Biden, will be the nominee. Is he the candidate that Trump feels is best suited to challenge?
I think that it's quite the opposite. I think that the president singles out Joe Biden because he thinks that Joe Biden might present the strongest challenge. Joe Biden is obviously leading the polls, although, as Jenna reported, he's sinking somewhat at this point. I think the president would far prefer to have someone who's not seen as so middle of the road relative to the rest of the field. And I think that's one of the reasons why you see the president singling out Joe Biden so much. Of course, the president has attacked many of the Democratic candidates at every opportunity he can. But I think that Biden, perhaps in the president's mind, in the White House's mind, in the Trump campaign's mind, poses the biggest threat at this point.
Yeah, what about Senator Elizabeth Warren? A new polling by Firehouse and Optimist shows her actually slightly ahead of Joe Biden in Iowa.
In Iowa, it's fascinating because Elizabeth Warren got off to such a slow start. But she's really playing to her brand. Remember, nobody had ever heard of Elizabeth Warren before the financial collapse. She was in Massachusetts. She had served in the legislature there, as the Attorney General, I believe, was going after the big corporations, really making a name for herself. There was talk that the Obama administration would appoint her to the new Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. But this is her brand. And she shares a certain populism with the president, ironically enough. She's also a very good campaigner. She's energetic. And remember, Iowa is a caucus state. And only the most motivated voters go out for caucuses, and as opposed to primaries, and certainly as opposed to a general election. And so I think because she is seen as such a firebrand and is defined sort of as the anti-Trump, notwithstanding some of the similarities that we see on trade and other issues, I think that's part of the reason why she's getting traction.
Mike, in the last debate, the candidates who stood out the most were the ones who went on the attack, both Kamala Harris and Julian Castro. Do you think we're going to see more of that tonight and tomorrow? Even Joe Biden was saying that he was overly polite the last go-around.
Right. And, I think Joe Biden, there's a danger for Joe Biden. Of course, he's on the second night, on Wednesday night, not tonight. I think there's a danger because his performance was so sort of halting and he was so deferential towards the hosts. I think he's going to be a little bit edgier for sure. But I think what's going to characterize these debates, frankly, is the fact that many of these second-tier candidates are going to be eliminated unless they make a move in the polls, unless they make a move with their fundraising. I think you're going to see a lot of them try to get out on the front foot, try to talk over each other, try to talk over the hosts and the announcers and the people who are asking the questions, try to get a rise out of the audience and look for that one big moment that goes viral.
What else are you looking for in these 2 nights of debate?
I'm looking for sort of a status quo performance from the front runners, and I'm looking for that one big sort of Hail Mary, if you'll excuse the expression, moment from some of the people in the second tier. I mean, we've had Beto O'Rourke just out now with his new environmental policy, his $5 trillion policy on climate change. We've got Elizabeth Warren out with a new proposal on trade, and we've got Kamala Harris out with her latest proposal on health care. It seems to be a bit of a moving target. So I think we're in the policy stage now for the front runners. I think those who are trailing the field are really going to have to make a splash over the next couple of debates, next couple of nights.
All right, Mike Fakira, thanks so much for being with us.
It's great to be here.
We appreciate your analysis.
Thanks, Mike.
All right.
Well, coming up, a new book explores why evangelicals have stood by President Trump despite his past transgressions.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
Here, we're committed to a heritage of rigorous scholarship dating back over 1,000 years.
And to a faith tradition dating back 1,000 more.
This is how we create a culture of inquiry where no topic is off limits.
And a culture of hope.
Anything's possible!
It's Christian leadership.
And it's changing the world for the better.
It's higher learning.
It's greater knowing.
It's what makes us whole.
It's what makes us Regent.
We'll talk to anyone, Republican or Democrat, about the tone of today's political discourse, and you'll likely hear the same answer.
That's right. They'll probably say it's downright nasty. But the question is, when and why did American politics take such a hard turn? Tim Alberta, Politico Magazine's chief political correspondent, is out with a new book called American Carnage: On the Front Lines of the Republican Civil War and the Rise of President Trump, currently the #2 nonfiction book on the New York Times bestseller list. I sat down with him yesterday to discuss evangelical support for the president and a storyline he wrote about Donald Trump and Ken Blackwell, a black conservative, that offers a little perspective on the current discussion about race.
Look, Ken Blackwell, I think if you talk to him, he would not be ready to jump to the conclusion that President Trump is a racist. But I think Ken Blackwell, like Tim Scott and like some other prominent black conservatives, would tell you that President Trump is, at best, probably racially insensitive. President Trump has a habit of stoking these racial fires. Sometimes it seems quite intentional, other times it seems unwitting. And this was one of those moments where, for people in the room, they were just sort of watching him and listening to him when he was talking to Ken Blackwell and questioning his street credibility. And they were just thinking to themselves, gosh, does this guy not know how that must sound to a black man?
Tim, you discuss evangelical support for Donald Trump in your book. Who did you talk to and what did you learn about this demographic group after discussing their support for President Trump?
Well, so I talked certainly with a number of grassroots leaders, Tony Perkins at the Family Research Council, Marjorie Dannenfelser with Susan B. Anthony List, Ralph Reed with the Faith and Freedom Coalition, among others. But I also talked with a lot of voters, and I talked with a lot of friends and family members. I grew up in an evangelical household myself, so I'm familiar with this world. And I think what was important to understand is that while many voters recognize that Donald Trump himself is transactional, that there really was a transactional relationship from evangelicals' perspective as well, because many of them felt as though, well, Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush and others maybe understood their universe a little bit better and could speak their language, that none of those folks were necessarily going to fight for their values in the way that Donald Trump was, which of course is very strange because Donald Trump doesn't share their values in many cases, and plenty of those voters I spoke with readily were recognizing that, and they said, look, even though he's not one of us, even though he doesn't sit in the pews with us, we still think that he is willing to take the fight to the left, both politically and culturally, in a way that none of these other established politicians are willing to.
Last month, there was a Twitter war of words among evangelicals about children at the border, and you tweeted, there are Russell Moore Christians and Jerry Falwell Jr. Christians. Choose wisely, brothers and sisters. Do you really see evangelicals divided in just two camps?
You know, I have covered the conservative movement and conservative Christian politics for about a decade now, and while I do think it's an oversimplification to just put them in two camps, to pretend that this is a spiritual dichotomy, there does seem to be that fundamental disconnect between Christians who tend to approach these policy issues more through a traditionally sympathetic Christian worldview about caring for the least among us, versus those who are viewing it more through a political prism in terms of border crossings, in terms of refugee numbers, things of that nature.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com. Want to be a part of a community that inspires your spiritual growth while winning prizes? The all-new MyCBN app. Connect with the community for prayer and encouragement. Track and set spiritual goals. Enjoy conversation starters with friends and family. And collect points to win prizes. The all-new MyCBN app. A great place to belong. Download the app at cbn.com/mobile. Grow, connect, have fun. The all-new MyCBN app.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs, from health to entertainment, you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place, from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Check your local listings or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
A bill that could have serious consequences for religious freedom protections is making its way through Congress. It's called the Do Not Harm Act, and if passed, would strip away certain parts of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, or RFRA. Supporters of the bill believe the RFRA is often used as a weapon against women, minorities, and the LGBTQ community, and that's why they want to chip away at it. Religious freedom advocates, though, say these protections are absolutely necessary for people of faith to be able to hold on to and live out their religious beliefs. And one of those advocates is Matt Sharp with the Alliance Defending Freedom, who joins us now. Matt, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Matt, you say the name of this bill is misleading. Do no harm. Why is that?
That's right. Well, as you mentioned, this bill would gut very important religious freedom protections for countless Americans, people of all walks of life, of Christians, Muslims, Jews, and so many others that throughout the 25-year history of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act have had their right to freely live out their faith protected against government efforts to tell them that they must violate their conscience or do something that violates their beliefs.
Matt, who's pushing this, and what's their motive here?
The lead sponsor in the House is Representative Joe Kennedy, and they're pushing this idea that RFRA is harmful, that it's being used to hurt other individuals, and that's simply false. For its 25-year history, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act has been used to, for example, protect the freedom of a Native American boy to be able to wear his hair long, consistent with his faith. It's protected healthcare providers and individuals who objected to paying for contraceptions or abortions or things like that. And it even helps faith-based adoption providers be able to operate consistent with their faith while helping kids to find a forever home. So we want to make sure that procedural protections are protected.
What would this look like if it passed? Can you give some examples of how people might negatively be affected, especially people of faith?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the examples of this would be, again, take the Little Sisters of the Poor. They object to paying for contraceptives, and they were able to succeed in their claim because of laws like RFRA. And so if the Do No Harm Act was enacted, then Little Sisters of the Poor and other religious groups that don't want to pay for abortions or contraceptives would be forced to do so in violation of their faith. There's many other examples of how people of faith would find themselves losing this important procedural protection if Do No Harm Act was passed.
Matt Sharp with ADF, good to see you. Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much.
And we'll be right back.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News.
And finally tonight, America celebrates a milestone 400 years after the birthplace of American democracy.
That's right. Today, in a visit to Jamestown, the president commemorated the first meeting of the House of Burgesses in a small wooden church in Jamestown, Virginia.
They came from God and country. They came in search of opportunity and fortune, and they journeyed into the unknown with only meager supplies, long odds, and the power of their Christian faith.
And that is it for tonight's edition of Faith Nation.
Have a great evening.